Halo Survival is a fan-made audio drama produced using assets from the Halo universe. These assets are owned by 343 Industries and Microsoft. We hope you enjoy this audio production.
Halo Survival, a fan-made audio drama produced by Podcast Evolved. Episode 1, Extract. The valley was a beautiful, natural vista, with vivid green pine trees reaching high into the sky. Plants and vegetation of every description adding life and color to the landscape. In the distance, water lapped at the shoreline of a small lake. Deep in the depths of the valley, an assortment of boxy structures sat, looking beaten and torn up. Plasma scorching decorated the walls of the buildings. Smoke and fire appeared to be eating them up from within. UNSC logos had once adorned these structures, but now they were blurred and distorted by scorch mark and debris. Amidst all the destruction, it was clear there was a fierce fight raging, with gunfire and explosions raging as a small group of humans inside the middle of the compound attempted to repel an alien force rapidly approaching them.
Weisner, 2 brutes moving in on your 6 o'clock. Suppressing fire.
I don't know if you've noticed, Sarge, but there are brutes everywhere.
There was an explosion as Weisner discharged 2 rockets from the Spanker rocket launcher which was in his hands, before he placed the weapon on the floor and unslung an MA-40 assault rifle from his back, spraying suppressing fire in the direction he had fired the rocket launcher. The Marines were embedded within the center of the compound, taking cover behind jersey barriers. In the center of the compound, a man in an UNSC science field uniform was attempting to attend to some kind of large metallic device, which was looking like an emitter of some kind. He was ducking between plasma fire and typing into a control console when a needler round struck him in the shoulder.
Talbot's been hit. O'Neill, Vostok, we need the Warthogs here now.
Captain Chris Cooper, the oldest and most gruff-looking of the Marines, shouted, firing a couple of rounds from a designated marksman's rifle before reaching for a comms device mounted onto his chest plate. The man on the ground sprawled in a pool of red blood, screaming as his filled uniform became drenched in a dark crimson.
Help. I can't feel my shoulder.
Hang on. We're going to...
There was a small explosion as a round from a fuel rod cannon struck the emitter, and it collapsed onto Talbot. He let out another yelp of pain, and then fell deathly silent.
Damn it! If we lose Talbot, then she'll be all over us in no time. Holt, Weisner, cover me. Where the hell are those Warthogs?
Cooper shouted, sprinting out from his cover. He hauled the collapsed emitter off of Talbot and slung the DMR over his shoulder, dragging Talbot out and into cover. There was an alien hum as a couple of ghosts began to appear at the far end of the compound and peppered the position the Marines were holding with plasma fire. Hot plasma tore through concrete and metal, shredding through their cover and quickly destroying what little protection they had. The Marines realized their position was no longer attainable. They needed to move.
Holt, Weisner, we're leaving. Provide cover fire. We'll exfil via the south side of the compound.
Cooper said, hauling Talbot's limp body up and over his shoulder as rounds continued to fly.
Raj. Weisner, on me.
Slowly, the group of 4 humans pulled back through the compound. They retreated past the burning buildings, overturned storage containers, and bits and pieces of scattered and broken UNSC equipment as they approached the perimeter fence of the small compound. The fence had seen better days, with long stretches collapsed and other pieces burned through with plasma. As they continued their retreat, they tried their best to return fire at the alien forces, who were closing in on every side, with plasma rounds and explosions tearing at the ground at their feet and piercing through the buildings on either side of them. Whilst Cooper ducked through the fence and hauled Talbot's body through it, Weisner and Holt crouched down in front of him, alternating between targets as they continued to engage the enemy.
Sarge, Jackal Sniper, 11 o'clock.
Weisner shouted, crouching as Holt twisted around and fired a BR-55 over the Marine's back.
Good spot. Run, 4 o'clock.
He's toast!
Weisner replied, almost gleeful, as a burst of fire from his MA-40 put the enemy down. The Marines then followed Cooper through the fence. The captain hauled Talbot off his shoulder and set him down, propping him up against the fence as he pulled the DMR off his back and reloaded it. The other Marines began to do the same, taking stock of the ammunition they had left after the intense firefight.
Only got a few rounds left. How are you looking?
Cooper shouted over the cacophony of sound.
2 AR mags left, sir. Spanker's gone. Dropped it in the compound.
1 frag grenade and 1 mag. I've also got 2 mags for my sidearm.
Damn it.
Cooper replied, the grim situation becoming clear.
Where the hell are those?
Cooper was cut off as a pair of M12 Warthog LRVs tore up the grass next to the compound and skidded to a halt in front of the small human team. The vehicles were the workhorses of the UNSC ground fleet, and they were used for everything from reconnaissance to case evac, which is what they were being used for in this case. Their exposed driver and passenger compartments meant that the squad could see their companions inside the hogs as they pulled to a stop. The Marine in the front convoy vehicle, Private Dan O'Neill, cocked a smile at Wisner.
Jeez, Wisner. You ain't a looker, but even you look like shit.
I may not be a looker, but at least I know how to get somewhere on time.
Stow it, Marines.
Holt stated, hoping Cooper to lift Talbot up into the passenger seat of the first Warthog. Wisner climbed onto the light chain gun mounted on the back of the front vehicle's chassis. Holt and Cooper then sprinted back to the second Warthog, where a silent Private Natalie Vorstock sat behind the wheel. She nodded to the captain and the sergeant. The captain hopped into the passenger seat whilst Holt climbed onto the chain gun turret and cocked the weapon.
Let's move out, Marines. Get us back to the ship.
The Warthogs quickly gunned it away from the compound, and in no time at all, both Holt and Wisner were opening up the chain guns mounted on the back of the vehicles to pick off their ghost pursuers as they proceeded to head deeper into the woodlands surrounding the compound. Eventually, they lost their tail and continued to head deeper across the landscape, climbing higher into the mountains where the landing zone they had established was hidden. As they climbed the mountainside, the sprawling landscape around them became more and more pronounced. Interesting structures appeared to float in the sky, and bits and pieces of the landscape almost felt modular, feeling assembled by scratch, but not quite finished, as jagged edges and square corners twisted upwards. The most interesting thing, however, was the long horizon which climbed upwards and slowly began to curve into the sky, reminding the Marines that they were, in fact, on a halo ring.
You have been listening to Halo Survival, a fan-made audio drama produced by Podcast Evolved and narrated by Henry Paul Davitt. The voice of Captain Chris Cooper was performed by Cam 4K Studios.
The voice of Sergeant Maria Holt was performed by Kirsty for Halo. The voice of Private Matthew Wisner was performed by Matthew Keel.
The voice of Private Dan O'Neill was performed by Demetrius Hazel. The voice of Dr. Nate Talbot was performed by William Boyer. The voice of Private Natalie Vorstock was performed by Samantha Endrist. Guest starring Brad Jost and Tim Piper. Halo Survival was written by Thomas Fishenden and Colin Perkins. Audio drama created using assets from the Halo video games, and music from both the games and the Podcast Evolved original album. Thank you for listening, and evolve.